Are you currently applying to study abroad in France, or do you want to study abroad in France and you're wondering how to write down a CV and a motivational letter in French that stand out? In today's video, we're going to talk about the structure of a CV and a motivational letter, as well as some things that are very important for you to include in both of them. Let's get started. Hello, my name is Moni, and in this YouTube channel I share with you what it's like studying abroad in France and also how you can do it too. If you want to learn more about this, subscribe to my YouTube channel and activate the notification bell so that YouTube tells you whenever I have a new video up. This is my first video of 2021. I'm so excited to see you back, and I'm so excited to see all of you that are new into my YouTube channel. I want to wish you lots of success, health, and happiness in 2021. When you're applying to study abroad in France, you have to build your own portfolio. Portfolios may vary depending on the studies that you're applying for. For example, in my case, I applied to study a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I know that the portfolio is quite different from the one of students that are applying to study art. In this video, we're going to concentrate more on the CV and motivation letter that you have to include in your portfolio and the reason why they're important. Why do you need to build a portfolio to study abroad in France? A portfolio allows recruiters to better get to know you. Basically, your portfolio is a way to persuade the recruiter to accept you into their university. There are different tools online that you can use to create an online portfolio. The first one and the most known one is LinkedIn. You can also create a website where you include all of the work that you've done. You can do this on WordPress or, for example, Wix, Squarespace. I have my own website and I have it on WordPress. I bought my domain on Bluehost, so I'll leave you the links in the description box if you also want to get your own domain on Bluehost. If you want me to do a quick tutorial on how to use WordPress, tell me in the comment section and I'll do one. The Bluehost link that I'll be including in the description box is going to be an affiliate link. If you do buy your domain with the link that I provided to you, then I'll be getting a commission. This is not going to cost you more, it is just going to help me out to maintain this YouTube channel because we have to pay stuff and nothing's free in life. Another website you can use to create your own portfolio is DuBoss. There's so many websites that you can use. These are just some examples. You can search online and find a lot of more information. Let's talk about how to write down a CV in French. Your CV is going to be the first thing that recruiters see. You have to add the most important information in your CV, and there's a structure that you have to follow. This may vary depending on what you're applying for. Today we're going to talk about applying to study in France. There are two things that you have to pay a lot of attention to. Is first, knowing who you're talking to, and second one, having a CV that is coherent with your project. What I mean by that is that all of the information that you include both on your CV and in your motivational letter has to make sense. Normally, whatever you apply, whether if it's for university, for a job, for a student job, for an internship, you have to include both a CV and a motivational letter. They're very important. Why? Because a CV and a motivational letter is the first thing that recruiters are going to see. That will tell them a lot about who you are, which are your objectives, and why should they accept you into their university. What should you include in your CV? The first thing is who you are, so your identity. Your last name has to be written down in capital letters. This is something very specific to France, so remember to always write down your last name in capital letters. Unless they tell you that you can write it down however you want to. Then you have to write down your address, your telephone number, email, date of birth. If you want to include a photo of yourself, you can do that. If not, you can send your CV without a photo. It's not mandatory. The second most important thing to add in your CV is your academic experience. You will be writing it down from the most recent one to the least recent one. So for example, if you're applying for a master's degree, then you're going to add your last diploma, which might be your bachelor's degree, and then you can go down with the diplomas that you got before your bachelor's degree. Remember that all of the information that you add on your CV has to be coherent with your project. If you're applying for a bachelor's degree or master's degree or PhD, most of the times you do not need to include your middle school diploma. You usually start from high school and then you go up. The third thing that you can add is your specific skills. For example, if you speak more than one language, you can add it there. The fourth thing to include in your CV is your experience. In this section, you can add any internship or jobs that you've had. Usually the structure for this is first, you add the month and the year of when you started your internship or your job, and the month and the year of when your contract ended or when your internship ended. The fifth thing you can include in your CV are extracurricular activities as well as your hobbies. For example, if you dance, ballet, hip hop, if you practice a sport, then you can add it there. Let's move into how to write down all of this information, like which is the structure of the CV. Usually you have different sections. I just gave you 5 important sections that you can include in your CV. There are different ways in which you can write it down. In my case, I did not include a column on the right or the left. As you can see online, you will find a lot of CVs where they include a right or left column where you can write down all of your language skills, hobbies, and keywords that describe who you are. In my case, I decided to do everything horizontally. That was the way that my French teacher recommended me to do that. So I wrote down my name, all of my personal information. Then I add different sections into my CV, my academic experience, the diplomas that I've got, extracurricular activities in which I enrolled, and hobbies. And I think that's it. Everything that you include in your CV has to fit into 1 page only. Think about how many CVs and how many motivational letters recruiters are receiving and they have to read. Like, that's a lot of CVs and a lot of motivational letters. You're not the only person that's applying to study that degree. So fitting everything into 1 page is just going to make their life easier. They will be able to quickly scan your CV, understand what you've studied, which are the specific skills that you have, like do you speak any languages, have you done any internships, and then they can move into your motivational letter to better get to know you. Here are 4 things that you have to pay attention to when you write down your CV. The first one is the font that you use. It has to be readable. It has to be the right size, not too small, not too big. Recruiters have to be able to read your CV without making any effort. You can use fonts like Times New Roman, Arial. I don't know, for Calibri, I usually go with Times New Roman. What I recommend you to do is to write down the titles either with capital letters or in black. The reason why I recommend you to do that is so that your sections are very clear to the recruiter, so that they know that you're talking in here about your academic experience and that you're talking about your skills. Again, they have to be able to read your CV without making a lot of effort. It has to be clear and to the point. Also, be careful with the margins that you're going to use for your CV. Do not make it too tight. Do not saturate your CV with a lot of information. It has to be readable, and if you add so much information and there's like a lot of letters and very little white space, it's very hard to read. The fourth point is your CV has to fit into 1 page and 1 page only. It cannot be from both sides, it has to be just from one side. When it comes to the structure of your CV, you have to follow a chronological order. You have to start with the most recent one. For example, if you're talking about your academic experience, first you're going to start with your most recent experience, with the most recent diploma you've got, and then you're going to go with the least recent ones. It has to be clear, concise, and persuasive. Use verbe d'action in your CV. Some examples are appliquer, exécuter, effectuer, and the list goes on and on. Pay a lot of attention to your spelling. French do not tolerate bad spelling and bad grammar. If you have a French teacher or if you know someone that is a French native speaker, ask them to proofread your CV and your motivational letter so that it's coherent. Make sure that you don't have any spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes. French do not like grammar or spelling mistakes, so pay a lot of attention to that. I cannot stress it enough. It's very important. Avoid using acronyms. If your school has an acronym, do write down the whole name of your school, or what you can do is write down the acronym and then in parentheses you can write down the whole title of your school if it's very long. Your CV has to be personalized, and my suggestion to you is to keep updating your CV because yes, you're using it now to apply for university, but later on you will need one to apply for a student job or for an internship. And it is good to keep your CV updated, and of course write down a CV that is very general so you can adapt it depending on what you're applying for. You have to adapt it to the person that you're talking to. If you have a website, if you have a LinkedIn account, or for example if you're applying to art and you have an Instagram art account, add those links in your CV. Recruiters love this. This is something that they have pointed me out when I send my CVs for jobs or internships. They love when they see that I have a blog and they can see the work that I've done. It is something that's going to be in your favor, so add it. Do not omit it. It's very important and it's going to help you out to get into university that you want to. Of course, it has to be coherent with your project. If you're adding a website of something that has nothing to do with your studies, then, there has to be a reason of why you're adding it into your CV. And you have to be able to tell the recruiter in your motivational letter why that is coherent with your project. Don't just add any website. It has to make sense. Now let's move into the motivational letter. A motivational letter always go with a CV, as I told you in the beginning of this video. It has to include a strong message. You have to be able to tell the recruiter why they should choose you and not another person. And the way that you do that is you will talk about your professional experience as well as specific skills that you've developed until that specific moment that you are writing down your motivational letter. In your motivational letter, you have to be really persuasive. You have to give them arguments of why you and why not somebody else. What I highly recommend you to do is to adapt your motivational letter to the university you're applying for. When you're applying to study in France, you have 3 different choices of universities. So what I did when I applied to study abroad in France was I wrote down a very general motivational letter with my objectives, who I am, and then I adapted each motivational letter to each university I was applying for. Why? Because it shows them that you care and that you've actually done your research in that university. And you're not just sending a general CV or motivational letter, because if you do, it just shows them that you don't really care about getting accepted into that university. You might care, but that's just something that they might perceive. So pay a lot of attention to that and personalize your motivational letters. If there's something that you wanted to add in your CV, but you no longer had space, you can talk about that in your motivational letter. Again, pay a lot of attention to your spelling, grammar, and the font that you use in your motivational letter. What I recommend you to do is use the same font for your CV as for your motivational letter. Like, choose one for both. It will make your motivational letter and CV look cohesive and just prettier overall. What should a motivational letter include? If you know who your motivational letter is addressed to, for example, a recruiter, the director of your university, the responsible of your bachelor's degree, and then address it to that specific person. And if you don't know, you can just write down Madame, Monsieur. Your motivational letter has to fit into one page. It has to be concise, which means that you have to get to the point. Add the most important information into your motivational letter. Something that you shouldn't do is repeat the exact same thing that you added on your CV and write it down in your motivational letter. You have to use arguments. A common mistake that students do is that they write down the same thing that they wrote in their CV in their motivational letter. Now, you have to mention some of the things that you talked about in your CV, but you have to use arguments. You cannot just be like, I studied in this high school, I did this and this and that, I got this and this diploma. You have to add something different. For example, if you got a diploma in marketing and you are applying for a master's, let's say a bachelor's degree in marketing, and you got an SEO diploma, then you can write down in your motivational letter why that diploma is useful. Like, why did you write down that? You can say something around the lines of, as you could see on my CV, I got a diploma on SEO, blah, 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 which allowed me to develop the skills that I think will be useful in my bachelor's degree, and you explain why. But do not repeat the exact same thing that you add on your CV without adding something new and something that persuades the recruiter, that wants them to have an interview with you. You know, you have to work in your persuasion skills and pay a lot of attention to that. Do not just copy paste and like part of phrase, you know? Your motivational letter has to be clear. Use short phrases. Do not write down like an essay, a book. Be concise, go to the point, tell them why they should recruit you. Think about the recruiters. They read a lot of motivational letters, a lot of CVs, so make yours unique. In your motivational letter, it is also recommended to use vers l'action. Something that I recommend to do is go to their website, read all of the information they have for the degree that you want to study, and pay attention to the keywords that they use. You can add those keywords into your motivational letter and in your CV. Remember to use formule de politesse. Write down your motivational letter and CV with using formal language. And again, ask someone if you have access to someone that can proofread your work, whether if it's a French teacher or a French native speaker, ask them to proofread your work because they can give you some advice of which are some things that you can include, which are some things that you can omit, and they will also help you out with your spelling and grammar. Sometimes you read a lot of times your CV and motivational letter to the point that you ignore your own spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes. It sounds okay to you, like you read it so many times that you don't see the mistakes. So that's why it can be really helpful to have someone else proofread your work. If this video was useful to you, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and activate the notification bell if you want to see more content like this one. And I hope that this information was really useful to you. I am no recruiter. Everything I share with you is based on my own experience. I hope that this helped you out. I wish you a lot of success in your application process. Bon courage and see you on my next video.